wide receivers. Week 13, FantasyCruncher YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave in the comments section the wide receiver you think will score the most fantasy points this week. There are some good ones. There are some really, really good ones this week. So, if you haven't already, think about who you're going to want to leave in the comments section as we go through this video, and you'll get a raffle chance to win a free week of FantasyCruncher Pro. All right, let's do it. Really good receivers at the top this week. Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin. I think they're really, really solid plays this week. Jacksonville just gave up a ton of yards to A.J. Brown last week. Let me just pull up A.J. Brown so I remember exactly how many rounds. It was a lot of yards. Let me see. How many yards did you give up to him? 135 yards to A.J. Brown. Ryan Tannehill put up 250 and 4 combined touchdowns. And Jameis Winston, as we all know, is better than Ryan Tannehill. There might be a lot of debate about Jameis Winston, but we can all agree he's better than Ryan Tannehill. So I really like this spot for Godwin and Evans this week. You know, it says 16th versus the position. That's because they just happen to give up 4 rushing touchdowns, too. 2 to Tannehill and 2 to freaking Derrick Henry. So they're just bad to everything. So lots of points here to be scored. And that means, of course, when you're behind, you got to throw the ball. And you want to throw the ball against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me tell you, they love giving up passing yards to everybody. DJ Shark, I think, is in a great spot. You know, only 6 targets last week. D.D. Wetmore. But again, I think they're going to be evenly spread here. I like DJ Shark. I like D.D. Westbrook. Don't even mind a Chris Conley in a large field tournament if you're trying to find a cheapie. Definitely think they all have got huge ceilings here against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game total is at... Why can't I find it on my screen? 47.5. Feels a smidge low, but that's even as is tied for the second highest total on this slate. We're getting in November. You're not going to see as many of those high 40s and 50 totals that we saw in September and October. A lot of cold weather environments. Jacksonville, by the way, in Florida, where it is not cold. So again, another nice advantage there to be drafting your skilled players in some warmer weather climates. Speaking of warmer weather climates, Arizona is one, but they play in a dome. As I mentioned in the quarterback video, just can't say no to Jared Goff this week. I think he's in a fantastic spot. And Cooper Kupp, of course, his number 1 wide receiver. Not really going to change much there. Robert Woods, also in a great spot. Their prices are up this week for this good matchup, but I'm not afraid of it one bit. DJ Moore, I think, is the next receiver I want to talk about. He's 6,800. He's been really kind of number 1 since Kyle Allen took over this year. You look at when Kyle Allen took over, he's had 8+ targets in every game under the Kyle Allen regime. And he's been doing well. You know, he hasn't necessarily always scored a ton of touchdowns, but the yards have been there, you know. 6 for 191, 12, 13, 16, 13, 28. Finally caught some touchdowns, had the blow-up week. It was Christian McCaffrey. I acknowledge it's going to be hard for you to always score multiple touchdowns, but it's clear if they get in there and they're not giving it to McCaffrey, he's their number 1 guy. And the Redskins, of course, love to give up fantasy points. So I think he's a nice option. Keenan Allen last week, in Mexico City, finally showed that he was a little bit healthy. I think he's pretty sneaky this week as well against a Denver secondary that's not quite the same. They do have a good player in the slot, which is definitely the thing I think that concerns me the most. But, you know, 25th against the pass here the last month, so I think it's a viable option. I think you could go that way if you're trying to differentiate yourself off of, you know, DJ Moore, Chark, and all these guys. I think all these receivers I mentioned so far are going to have some decent ownership. But if you're looking for something a little bit off the radar, I think Keenan Allen is your guy. So kind of moving to the mid-tier here, Christian Kirk against that Rams secondary. I mean, the Rams secondary is bad. He could do just basically what Marquise Brown did last week, just run straight through the middle. I think he's a nice option. Tyler Boyd gets Andy Dalton back this week, the Jets secondary. I know that they played well against the Raiders, but that was more of a Raiders just never showed up to play. I think with Andy Dalton back, we could see Tyler Boyd back. Andy Dalton had some big target games with Tyler Boyd in this early season. 12, 10, 11, 14, 14. I think we could see double-digit targets here for Tyler Boyd. And against the Jets, if he does that, he could get 2 touchdowns. So I wouldn't want to be feeding him across my tournament teams. As I mentioned, D.D. Westbrook, somehow he's cheaper than Chris Conley. That's just a bargain and a half. Larry Fitzgerald, nice option as well. Guys who I don't want to be playing this week, I really just don't want to play any of those San Fran, Baltimore guys. I mentioned that in the running back video that I just don't really have a strong feel for that game. So again, that's probably one that I'm just going to stay away from this week. A.J. Brown against the Colts, kind of think I'm a week late on it. I don't really want to chase there. I'm trying to find a cheap guy that's option. Tim Patrick's not a bad option. He got some targets last week, but if they change the quarterback to Drew Lock, I mean, all the chemistry stuff goes right out the window. Let's see if there's any super valuable cheap guys I like. Any Isabella is starting to have a nice role, getting more and more targets, and that San Fran game, of course, was just going to be a bad matchup for him. Off the bye week, playoff hopes may be done. I could see him being a surprise starter and going bonkers, but I wouldn't go crazy with him. Deion Kane signed off of the Colts practice squad, came in and got some work. Reports are that he's going to get more work this week. Again, how much is more work? I don't know, but I think he's an interesting option if I need a super punt. But honestly, I'm really going to try to stay on this first page of 60 receivers. I don't think I really need to get much lower than, let's say, A.J. Brown. Zach Pascal, of course. T.Y. Hilton ruled out. So he's back to being the number one receiver. Had a few bad weeks. That price is down. That's an interesting option. Mike Williams, of course, against that Denver secondary is an option. So there's some talented players here in this 5K range. So I'm really not going to try to go too much below this in my tournament builds this week. If that means I have to pay down a little bit at running back 2, if that means I have to pay down a little bit at defense this week, kind of willing to do that. If you don't have to pay down at tight end, I think I would do it in the name of getting the good wide receivers, because I do think that there really aren't a ton of great options down here. Like, really don't want to play Green Bay roulette in New York with bad weather. Don't really want to play Raiders roulette, although someone's going to have to take over from Renfro, I guess. I just have no idea who that's going to be. It could be Zay Jones, but he hasn't really done a whole lot. It could be Keelan Doss. He got a season high in targets. I guess that's an option. But I wouldn't be like, oh, Keelan Doss, he's this awesome receiver. Wouldn't get like super crazy about it. Aitman was a good play last year, but he's been just buried this year. Yeah, maybe it's Keelan Doss, but again, like, unless you're playing a Kansas City stack, do you really need to run it back? And then, honestly, if you're playing a Kansas City stack, wouldn't you just rather run it back with Darren Waller, who's probably the biggest winner here? But again, 51 total, definitely worth exploring these guys, because, you know, in a 51 total, basically anyone who's going to play a ton of snaps is worthy of consideration in tournaments. All right, I think that's it. So again, I covered a lot of names. Let me give you the top 5 that I'm considering right now, and it's going to be a bunch of expensive guys. Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, Tyreek Hill, D.D. Westbrook at 5,700, and DJ Moore. Again, who do you think is going to be that highest scoring wide receiver? Leave it in the comments. Please subscribe, like if you haven't already, and check out the other videos, quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends and defense. Good luck in Week 13. We'll see you here next week.